There's kind of three main camps of Metal Gear fans. Well, there's four. The first camp are people who really ignore the game and aren't into its complexities, and maybe they've played one or two of the older ones, but the big AAA releases they get behind. But they're dubious of Kojima's self-indulgence, big long cutscenes, some of his stuff borderlines on camp. It's really crazy. His stories and characters, outfits and names can get well out of hand. The second group, kind of what I'm in, which is I keep a very close eye on Kojima's work, and if he comes out with a Metal Gear game, I play it immediately. Death Stranding was another kettle of fish. We'll get to that in a second. But then there's the third camp that own PT and unequivocally worship everything Kojima comes out with, regardless of whether it's a Postman Simulator or a Metal Gear game. What about the fourth camp? They're people who think it's an anime and haven't made the distinction between Full Metal Alchemist and Solid Snake. As time has gone on, remember this came out in 2015, I'm starting to move into camp number 3. Because Death Stranding, and you can see what he was trying when you sort of look at certain aspects of Metal Gear 5, his new direction with that subject matter was quite welcome. But I had a little bit of Fallout 76 syndrome with this, and what I mean is that my last memory of a good Kojima game was kind of Death Stranding. It was in my brain as in that slot, and it wasn't until I got to this, after 5 years of it sitting on my shelf, that I realised that Metal Gear Solid: The Phantom Pain is absolutely friggin' amazing. It's a tower against loads of previous titles and most of the stuff that has come or is coming after the big split from Konami. Fallout 4 is exactly the same, an absolute pillar in that series, and 76 is just a little squib that squirted out at the end. So don't have that in your mind's eye as an equivalent. Death Stranding is very different to this.
Put those 9 years behind you and return as Big Boss.
I am GougeQ, by the way, and this is still held up. Two very depressing things dawned on me when I was putting together this video. One of which is that every PlayStation system from the PlayStation 1 has had a Metal Gear game release in sort of the first month's launch of the system, giving it a real good boost and making sure that everybody gets that system because there's a new Metal Gear game out on a Sony PlayStation 1, 2, and 3, and we didn't have it with 5. We have it 4 with this. 3 was Metal Gear 4, which is one of the weaker, I feel, because of its 70-minute cutscene. So the PlayStation 5 is the first console release from Sony without a Metal Gear exclusive sort of first-party release in its opening month, and that felt really lonely. That felt really strange. It was like, you know, when you're friends with a couple and they turn up without the other one, and it's like, oh, you guys were so much better as two people. The PlayStation 5 without Kojima giving exclusive Metal Gear games to it is hurting. And it all rushed back when I played this. I was so proud of my PlayStation 4. I was so excited to have this game in my hand and sit down, and I was so not disappointed by all of it. The opening cutscene, the music, the new Metal Snake with his arm and his cool new moves, and the open world aspect. Nothing in it was broken, nothing in it did not work. The whole game was a complete, pristine, beautiful product. We are nowhere near that world anymore. Secondly, it's quite easy to forget how Kojima operates within a studio, or having sort of people above him and quality control and sort of saying that 16-minute long freeze frame on a river may have to come out. This has got this amazing pace to it. It's got a really cool story embedded into the boss fights, and the missions incrementally introduce you to some crazy ass situations, and it doesn't stop at military tactical hardware. The game's got a very much supernatural vibe. All of the bosses have that spooky, scary aspect that Kojima always keeps in with these Metal Gear games. It's so real and grounded, but at the same time a fantastic magical tale that blends so well together when you start out in that campaign. That brings me to the game's genius setting. So it's the 80s, it's Afghanistan. We're all familiar with that part of the world because of modern news stories and the current conflicts out there. But it's the Russian introduction. This is all true and canon. Russians did occupy vast swathes of Afghanistan. They even trained up and gave loads of military hardware to the indigenous population. It was a very weird time. And blended in with that is some of the best music of the millennium. The 80s had the coolest era of sort of rock and roll and techno and new wave and synth. It was all born back then, and it's all pushed right in front of you the whole time you're playing this game. I was smiling from ear to ear, and I cannot believe I forgot all of this quality. I think there's been so much water under the bridge, both with the gaming industry and the planet, and what's going on at the moment, COVID, Ukraine. It's just so weird playing this again. You really can peg exactly where you were when you first fired it up. I don't think I'm the only person that does this, but I often subconsciously hide memories within films and music and obviously now video games, because I can remember exactly where I was when I first played this. I was in a different country, at a different address, working a different job. I was essentially someone else. And to mark that distance by firing this up again, it's actually given me this jolt, this huge wake-up call that the industry is really not the same animal it was in 2015, 2016, right down to YouTube and everything. It was a big impact on me. Let's talk about Metal Gear Solid 4 briefly, because I did get to play it. I didn't own a PlayStation 3. I was very jealous of the game. The cutscenes looked amazing. Solid Snake in that sort of black onesie. It was something to be looking over at the fence at. But it did come with its complaints. I think it holds the official Guinness record, no lie, to having the most amount of cutscenes in a video game. It is absolutely horrendous. And when you're playing the various little sections and the cutscene comes in, you're completely ripped from the immersion. But I wanted to make the point that the sections it does introduce to you, they're not small, and you do have choice. And that is one of the critical angles of Metal Gear The Phantom Pain, is choice on execution of the mission, which we're now about to get into. Snake Eater, strangely enough, over on the PlayStation 2, did have some slightly more sandboxy environments than Metal Gear Solid 4, and that's one of the reasons I'm extremely excited for a remake of that format. They obviously clocked that, and it's going to look amazing. It's going to be a PlayStation 5 exclusive, and it might well fill that void I've got for not having an exclusive Kojima Metal Gear Solid game on my brand new system. The first thing that strikes you is how current gen the AI feels within the open map format. You don't have vision cones for anybody. You have to physically look for the eye line, and you have to actually find them by sight through the binoculars before you can have them clocked as a permanent icon within map. It's very advanced feeling. I know it's probably not the most complicated algorithm, but somehow up against what I'm playing today, there's no difference. The quality is amazing. The communication between them, the relay of information, how they all start talking to each other and how they flank you and start putting pressure on, is really current gen, and I don't think it's been equaled in any open world game since. Also the detail. You'll see so many videos online about the incredible detail put into this map. Look at these little children's paintings up here of the tanks and the way the sun drifts over it all. They're taking over the commandeering of equipment, be it a mortar or a machine gun or a truck, is just like limitless. They've put them in such cool positions everywhere, and they've also made them things that are genuinely difficult for you to navigate around if they have an individual manning them. So the amount of devices you can turn on and off, explosives you can set off, or distractions you can put in just on a tiny section of map for a tiny subquest is mind-blowing. And the amount of hours you can put in doing a perfect run almost on certain missions gives it huge amounts of replayability. I'll give you an example of this AI thing. I'm playing loads of Forbidden West, Burning Shores as well, the PlayStation 5 exclusive, and the creature AI is so easy to cheese, it's too tempting. With this, I was looking for like holes in some of the security and getting too close to people. Every time I was clocked, every time I was flanked correctly. We haven't even covered the sheep. Let's talk about its major concept, which essentially is battlefield extraction and the mother base. What I mean by that is it's all about going out, kicking ass and coming back, sorting out everybody at your hub and getting upgraded and then moving on to the next mission. But the game enables you to access your iDroid at any given time, and you can call in, if you're not technically in combat, your dropship or pickup helicopter and get out and go back or move around the map, and you just feel like you've kind of got your own little private army looking after you. The iDroid itself allows every bit of research and development, staff management, building construction, new areas of the mothership from wherever you are in the game, whenever. Right, this blew my. Most games make you go back, give a friggin' ticket to someone, wait 24 hours in real time. No, bang, 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 on the fly development, and you just drop it all in. You don't technically need to go back to mother base at all, but you're obligated to. You have to take a shower because you stink, and you do want to get stuff going with all of those amazing NPCs from some of the previous games.
Didi, come back!
The nostalgia, the faces, and the Easter eggs, even Mother Base itself with that orange design is very reminiscent of the oil tanker in Metal Gear Solid 2's finale. It's everywhere, the amazing backwork and really cool nods to some of the best Metal Gear games in the series. I want to touch on that horse, the buddy system, which does get a lot deeper. You get a dog, you get a little mini Metal Gear. It's absolutely crazy how much you can push into developing a very cool companion on the battlefield. But the horse as the starter and its integration with getting on and off it, how easily that's handled, calling it whilst you're running. Remember, Breath of the Wild has not come out yet. Horizon Zero Dawn has not been released. This is the first really good technical horse within a combat game that generally works. It's not frustrating. It comes when you call it, and you can also run alongside and get the mount going. Red Dead Redemption 2 even hadn't come out yet. I was mucking around with the passing the time system where he smokes his cigar, plays a really cool tune. Hadn't fathomed that, of course, the guards change. I should have done this in cover, get completely clocked. It's awesome. Traditionally, the whole idea with Metal Gear games is not to get into feverish, one-to-one, messy combat, or get anyone really spot you or fire a direct bullet at you. You want to be doing this all undercover and all without the enemy team knowing. A bit like the Far Cry games, this never really works, or sometimes can go very wrong. The way it handles this when it does go wrong is amazing. And I am a big fan of getting the crap shot out of me and setting everything off just to see what it all looks like with the bells and whistles. The storm and sand system is something I also want to talk about, but we will get to that in a second because of your night vision goggles, how it enables more cloaking in combat. It's a brilliant addition to an already very cool weather system, both day and night in real time. But just quickly, whilst I've got it up, Death Stranding had this real disability with the UI and overcomplication and explanation of certain tasks being told you one too many times or just not explained very well. You were waded through so many screens on that game. You didn't know what you'd unlocked or what you needed to unlock. There is a little bit of complication on the UI with this, but it's nothing compared to that game, and it's very much streamlined. I wanted to talk about destruction and explosives and structures and how they are not permanent within map, and things can crumble, things can blow up, telegraph poles can fall down and get electrocuted from the wires, but more importantly you can set up these domino effects with blowing up barrels, setting off generators, starting to distract the enemy with various system malfunctions. You can even just full mount their own weapon placements. It's almost like, and this is probably the case, the whole map had a good third, fourth look at where everything was placed, making sure you just have a whale of a time wherever you're positioned. You do get to drop in some pretty cool vehicles and take over enemy vehicles, get them taken back to Mother Base. You even get to brand certain vehicles, but you can just steal them ad hoc to get around. Technically they are a bit quicker than the horse. You can't fire from every vehicle, but it's awesome to be able to switch things up on the traversal front and get to try out and look at all this amazing military hardware. And talking of hardware, the frickin' guns and equipment, man, the claymores, the silenced riot SMGs, the way the whole title takes loads of weaponry very seriously. The snipers are some of the best rifles I've ever seen in a video game, and the recoil, the spinning round of bullet impacts is nuts. How much love is put into the weapon and weapon development within this game. And that also goes to his mechanical hand. You can get it to do cool new stuff, and you can even get skins put on. Again, his armor and his outfits worked out, turning full woodland, going to the desert, and getting it dropped in real time to change before mission. Man, there's just too much to like with the Phantom Pain. I remember in launch week, when the game came out on the PlayStation 4, before the Pro was actually released, there was loads of complaints about this map being a little bit barren, being a little bit like almost like it's set in a desert in the middle of nowhere. I think they got it bang on, and the wildlife stuff and injecting that little bit of colour, that little bit of vegetation here and there, it feels applicable and realistic. It's not dressed up to look like somewhere else. I like the idea of the wildlife having quite a large scope, i.e. full-on bear fights. I want to get on to the pacing and some of the installations and how the main campaign puts you through some very cool rescue missions. They embed the target right down in cellars of huge enemy bases, and this is a great little shot. You see the wind picking up, there's a storm coming in now. This is going to help me get in and out without being seen. I can switch to night vision. You just feel like nature itself is behind Solid Snake getting towards his objective. It doesn't always go technically to plan. That campaign puts boss fights in all the right places, introduces all the coolest NPCs when you want to see them, and expands on that mother base and people you've got to take out on missions. I haven't even touched on Quiet as a companion or as a playable character. That section of the game is absolutely huge, and we haven't gone anywhere near the online multiplayer, which reminds me, no paid PlayStation access on all of this footage didn't hinder that single player experience whatsoever. It gets you a little warning, tells you want to or should be logging in, but no, not needed to enjoy this game's stellar content.
One more thing. Apparently one of the Hamid fighters survived. He's missing, but if you can find him, he might lead us to the target. Good luck, boss.
I haven't actually spoken about the graphics yet. Are we still in the introduction? No, we are quite a way into the video. It's running at 60 frames per second. The internet says that it's 1440, so it's putting out at 2K. It did not capture at 2K, which points towards upscaling, which I'm definitely thinking is happening. It's certainly a game that looks incredible for 2015, and it must have slacked the jaws of everyone, me included, when I first fired it up. Has there been an official PlayStation 5 performance patch? Not to my knowledge. We're looking at passive backward compatibility boosts here, and it's very much a welcome addition. The pad doesn't have any haptic feedback or anything, and you do get some cool noises and voices coming out of the pad, but it's certainly not feeling like a current gen PlayStation 5 game. However, underneath those slightly dated visuals, you've got one of the most in-depth, action-packed, cover-based shooters. So it hasn't been mentioned before that this game easily competes with anything else. Vanquish, Gears of War, with its cover-based mechanics, they're flawless. It's like a Splinter Cell system where you can actually crouch and look around corners, hop over stuff quickly. Is there actually anything wrong with this game, Coop? No. And it was Kojima's and Konami's swan song, and they made sure that he had a good send-off. I know a lot said about that publisher and distributor and developer, but Konami got it right here. This was amazing as the last edition. Just think how half-assed Metal Gear Survive is. Never has a franchise needed its leader or had its heart ripped out of it like the Metal Gear Solid series. What a tragedy, but what a great way to enjoy an amazing series finale with Metal Gear Solid The Phantom Pain. Talking of great game directors, we've got Shinji Mikami, the guy that came up with Resident Evil 4, who did The Evil Within. I think that's going to be my next Still Holds Up. The series itself is in like its 4th, 5th game. I think I'll get one more in to make it a half-decent playlist. It hasn't really been performing too well, but it's something I love doing. Digging out older cool games that didn't get the attention on the channel they deserved. This is certainly one of them. Thank you so much if you gave this video the 20 minutes that it was. You're amazing. I'll see you down there. Couch Coop out.
I want to give them to you so you can
Trouble,
see.
man. I'm sure about to breathe. Kazuhira Miller is being held in Dawandehar to the north.